There it is. This is bad news. My God.
Falling out right now.
Anything could happen. Get on! Wow. I'll watch the video later. They dry mopping this. Let's just keep beating down on this story about the Wednesday wild weather we're expecting. Meteorologist Chris Calais is, of course, in our group chat for the Meteorological Report, our comedy meteorology show we put on every Thursday here in the channel, live here at 6 p.m. 6:30 p.m. I should say, 6:30 p.m. every Thursday night. Join us here, right here, live. Hit like, share, subscribe, and join us. So meteorologist Chris down in Portland, Oregon is one of our guys who is sometimes on the show, but is always in the group chat throwing information at us. We got to thank Chris for some of this awesome stuff he's given us. So this is where Chris is going to be found tomorrow down there outside Portland, looking out for his viewpoint, Elk Rock Creek. Is Elk Rock Viewpoint is where Chris is going to be chasing this phenomenal looking storm setup. Now, a couple things he's showed to us tonight in the group is that how warm it's already been in Portland today. Saw highs getting up to 79 degrees Fahrenheit. Warm, 58.3 on the dew point. So the high pressure right now, but it's going to come collapsing down, crashing down. So check out this that he's been showing us in the group chat.
Bobby Corser with you. Just want to talk to you about the severe thunderstorm threat that we have coming to the Portland area tomorrow. Now, in the last hour, the Storm Prediction Center in Norman has upped the risk from just a marginal risk to a slight risk. It's now, instead of being 1 out of 5, we're now 2 out of 5. That's primarily for large hail. We're thinking that we could see some thunderstorms tomorrow that have anywhere from 2 to 2.5 inches in hailstones. Now,
Chris says, thinking about heading up to Elk Rock tomorrow since stuff should stay east of I-5. 1,300 meters elevation means better odds of hail, he's saying. And he's got to work tomorrow. It's got to be a quick one. Maybe a drive up, hang out, and back. Hank says to me, nice video on the avalanches, Joey. Didn't see that yet. Thank you very much, Hank. Topic's a big one for him because he lost multiple acquaintances who has lost their lives to mountain avalanches at a way too young of an age. So I hear you on that, Chris. And then Justin's talking about how he's just about pulled the Weather Center of Manitoba up to the amount of watch time required in order to get himself monetized. So do that. They got some bad weather coming into Manitoba this week, so you want to check out their channel, Weather Center Manitoba. Anyways, so back to the story there. Temperature warm in Portland today. Says former NWS Portland meteorologist Sean Weigel wrote a nice pseudo-forecast discussion this evening, tomorrow's severe storm risk. And we have it right here for you. Epic setup Wednesday for severe thunderstorms in northwest Oregon and southwest Washington. Wednesday offers perhaps the best setup for severe thunderstorms that I have seen in my nearly 20 years forecasting the region in and around the Portland metro region. Latest water vapor satellite shows a deep upper level low near 40 degrees north, 145 west, running into an unseasonably strong and record warm or near record for the time of year ridge of high pressure aloft dominating the western U.S. This strong ridge caused temperatures to soar across inland northwest Oregon, with temperatures approaching 80 degrees Fahrenheit in the Portland metro as of 5 p.m. Tuesday afternoon. PDX had already reached 79 degrees Fahrenheit, soundly breaking the previous daily record of 74, record-breaking temperature. The air mass in place would be much more typical for mid-June than late March. Meanwhile, the upper low offshore is quite vigorous and pretty typical for March. As the upper low approaches the Oregon coast Wednesday, a short wave rounding the base of the upper low begins to run up against the upper ridge in place. This will cause the approaching system to take a negative tilt, turning flow aloft more southerly, possibly south-southeast, and importing high PW air into the region. Area. This will set up a classic clash of the air masses at just the right time for convection, midday and afternoon Wednesday. This initial short wave out ahead of the upper low will push a bit of a theta E front northward across northwest Oregon and southwest Washington late Tuesday night, early Wednesday a.m. with some model soundings showing enough resultant instability aloft for elevated convection early Wednesday in the morning. While this may provide spotty lightning in the wee hours of Wednesday morning, the more relevant aspect of this will be how long the clouds linger over the area. Most guidance suggests skies will clear by mid-morning, yielding ideal heating during the peak sun hours of the day on Wednesday. So what you want is the sun to actually start cooking things and get that temperature up, get that up. So when that front slams in, it's hitting into the warmest time of the day with as much heat to work with. NAEFS still suggests 850 millibar temps are near climatological maxima in the 99 plus percentile. 18Z Wednesday. So even with partly cloudy skies, highs near 80 degree Fahrenheit seem reasonable for the PDX metro region. That's Portland, Wednesday afternoon. MBM is showing a greater than 60% chance of this happening. This, along with cooling temps aloft throughout the day as the shortwave approaches, will lead to SB Cape values that are extremely high for our region. NBM suggests 30 to 50% chance of SB Cape values exceeding 1,500 joules per kilogram in the Willamette Valley. Cape is surface-based Cape. We're talking about surface-based convective available potential energy. How much energy for thunderstorm growth is there? This is a I-5 corridor between Salem and Olympia at some point Wednesday afternoon. As the synoptic forcing arrives with an 80 to 100 knot southwesterly mid-level jet, so we got strong winds moving a different direction at mid-level. Instability will be at its afternoon peak at Wednesday. So the 3-kilometer NAM sounding suggests ML Cape peaking around 1,500 joules per kilogram with surface-based Cape values in excess of 2,500 joules per kilogram, even as high as 3,500 joules per kilogram, which is decent even by Great Plains standards. The higher values are likely too extreme, so we'll write that off. But it's notable that the ground is very wet and supportive of higher dew points than usual given the environment. Yeah, well, that sun is going to be cooking a lot of moisture and making the air more humid, is what he's saying, which may make the usually too moist NAM surface conditions closer to reality. Directional shear is not incredibly impressive, okay, so, we don't have necessarily that, but enough to sustain a few supercells in the initial convection, which cams show developing over central southern portion of the Willamette Valley around 20Z Wednesday. The shear should be enough to keep the unusually strong updrafts by our standards here on the West Coast and downdrafts separated. Meanwhile, North American model soundings suggest a minus 20 degree C line right in the vicinity, right in the middle of the strongest buoyancy. So this rings alarm bells that the initial supercells will be capable of producing hail of unusual size for areas west of the Cascades as they march northward through the Willamette Valley Wednesday afternoon. How large? Well, large enough that SPC has the Willamette, Storm Prediction Center has the Willamette Valley in the hatched area with the potential for 2+ inch hail in the Willamette Valley. That's pretty large hail. At the least, it appears several locations could encounter hail greater than 1 inches between 1 and 5 p.m. on Wednesday, possibly into the evening. So Storm Prediction Center and National Weather Service Portland appear to be handling this situation very well thus far. In my opinion, it's probably more likely than not that some portions of northwest Oregon, southwest Washington will be under severe thunderstorm watch by the late Wednesday afternoon. It appears the wind threat may be somewhat underestimated with this system, as it's likely evolving into a QLCS, quasi-linear convective system, into Wednesday evening. The strong south-southwest mid-level jet injecting into the system could easily reinforce a more linear cluster of storms. So a line of storms that might be producing a gust front, maybe perhaps even sort of like a DeRoche sort of setup of gusting 50 to 70 miles per hour, talking maybe up to 100 kilometers an hour, possibly moving into southwest West Washington Wednesday evening. The initial supercells will likely be transitioning into the more linear system right as they move into the Portland metro around 5 p.m. Hail may be more likely in the Willamette Valley, with wind more likely northward into southwest Washington closer to sunset. Tornado threat? He says he's not super impressed as the low-level shear remains weak. It is possible that a couple of the initial cells gather enough low-level rotation, likely assisted by terrain. That would be my guess, yes, for a couple quick spins. Spin-ups, maybe gustnadoes in front. Okay, in my opinion, I believe the hail threat is probably the most significant, followed by the potential of scattered to locally widespread power outages. due to the wind as the storms become more linear, PDX Metro northward. So here's the caveat. If the mid-high level clouds linger longer than expected or unexpectedly fill in between the Theta E front Wednesday in the morning and the cold front Wednesday in the afternoon, it could be a significant limiter for surface temps, and thus the convective available potential instability could keep convective inhibition suppression in place longer than the guidance currently shows. This would likely result in weaker cells, smaller hail in the afternoon, though the wind threat could still be in play. That's from Weagle. So when you just look at the bigger picture, look at some of the heat they're talking about that's at play in the west. Phoenix at 33, Las Vegas at 33 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow. And have a look, Boise, Idaho in the 20s. This is some of what we were talking about. 26 in Portland, that's a setup. That's a setup. If that happens, if they can get that temperature up to that point. Over in Kennewick and the Tri-Cities and whatnot, into the 20s as well. Spokane, Pullman as well. So you're seeing the areas where it might provide a little bit of enough dryness and and heat in there for a little bit, that when this wet system moves on in, it could provide for some pretty explosive situations. Let's have a look at convective available potential energy here for a second. Sort of a spooky convergence of surface winds there expected into that eastern part of Washington. Now let's look at the surface-based Cape. I just noticed that we saw temperatures like in the high teens in southern BC. Like Kelowna, Penticton may see some of that. Look at some of that surface. Look at some of that convective available potential energy. Bam, we'll pause it right there. Have a look in. It's really not showing itself in British Columbia that much. That may take our risk for severe down a little in BC. 2,000 joules per kilogram. These are some pretty high numbers, actually. Down below Silverton, we're looking at 2,000. So we're into the 2,000s for a significant stretch of that area up along the, and look at that, even Vancouver, Washington, that's Vancouver, Washington, 26 degrees there Celsius, and we're seeing pretty high convective available potential energy. I'll remind you, in 1972, they had a F3 tornado in Vancouver, Washington that killed 6 people, and I think at the time it caused $25 million in damage.
Yeah, Jenny, it sliced right through Vancouver, and it was a long track tornado for these parts. It stayed on the ground for about 8 miles and did all kinds of devastation. It's still the deadliest tornado, as you mentioned, not only in the Pacific Northwest, but west of the Rockies. Killed 6 people and 300 people were injured. Now, back then we had a different scale. It was rated an F3 tornado, which means it had winds 158 to 206 miles per hour. So how did it happen? It was only possible because of very localized conditions. We had air flowing over the West Hills that spun up toward the Columbia River and then collided with wind moving through the Willamette Valley from south to north. So a very unique setup, definitely one we will never forget.
So by today's standards, that would be quite an intense storm. So look at this. I was saying that I think storms may turn out stronger in that eastern part of Washington than they were maybe giving credit for. And you just look at where that convective available potential energy is. It sure kind of shows it. How much does that move up to BC now? That's the question. It seems like it really stays out there, but it lingers into the night. I think we'll see thunderstorms that linger into the night down there. Thunderstorms in Texas on Wednesday morning, 6 a.m. Look at that low out there, looking deeper than we thought it would be, hitting down to 980, 979. It's getting stronger than I thought, than we maybe saw on models it predicting to be. So look out. This could be a bigger show the next few days than maybe we gave credit for. Again, still showing the same things on the ECMWF model. Some storms popping up down there close to the BC border to start. We don't see larger storms pop up into the mountains there. Boom, suddenly in the afternoon, 5 in the afternoon, we start to see some fast movement on those storms. Seattle might get smoked. Yeah, absolutely. Look at that low digging right into the center of Washington. Boom, storms through the middle of the night. Showing less for BC than maybe we saw last time. Even right to 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, still some lightning going on. Look at some of that. Look at some of that flashing. Do we really see much in BC? Compared to what we saw before, it's not a whole lot different, I guess. Kelowna, you might see some flashes. Look out. Still that border country area down near Boundary. Could see a cell or two move through there that picks up and is quite strong. So here's some of the things we're looking at on Wednesday, severe storm outbreak. I made a few videos about it. Hit like, share, subscribe. Keep on coming back to the channel. We'll try to keep you up to date tomorrow with all the information we can get as we get it. Keep making short videos here and keep filling you in on all the details. But that's it for me tonight. Take care, folks. We'll see you next time. Bye.